Welcome back. You're watching Lunchtime Agenda here on Sky News. Joining me now for our panel discussion this afternoon from Perth, Liberal Senator Matthias Cormann, and from Melbourne, Labor MP Mark Dreyfus. Good afternoon to both of you, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Good to be with you.
Firstly to you, Mark Dreyfus, the latest Newspoll. It's certainly not good news for Labor. The Rudd government's honeymoon seems certainly dead and buried.
Selena, we've always said that the next election's going to be close, and we're going to go on making the tough decisions, working on real policy changes as we go into the election. We're going to go on with the work that we've been doing in health, go on with the work that we've been doing in tax, and of course the tax reforms that have just been announced are the most recent in that set of policy changes.
Before we go to Senator Cormann in Perth, let's hear what Tony Abbott had to say on radio this morning.
This is a government which has failed to deliver on pink bats, on building the education revolution, on boat people. This week they've failed to deliver on tax reform. You've got Prime Minister Rudd saying that climate change is the greatest moral challenge of our time, and then not doing anything about it. People are thinking it's a government that doesn't deliver, and it's a Prime Minister who isn't quite fair income.
So, Senator Cormann, it certainly is a ripper of a Newspoll for you and your coalition colleagues. Are you popping champagne corks today?
Look, there's only one poll that counts, and that is the poll on election day, and we still have a lot of work to do between now and election day to gain the trust and the confidence of the Australian people. However, what the Newspoll does show today is that Labor's pattern of failure and incompetence does appear to have finally caught up with them. People are tired of the broken promises, and increasingly they understand that this government is all talk and no action.
Mark Dreyfus, you would acknowledge that it has been a terrible couple of weeks for Labor, and are you hoping that the worst is behind you?
What I've noticed about the last couple of weeks, Selena, is a complete absence of policy from phony Tony. We've had him again this morning, going out there criticising the government on climate change, which is a bit rich coming from him, given that it's his party that reneged on the deal in December last year and voted down the government's carbon pollution reduction scheme. On the tax reforms, he's complaining about what we've done in relation to tax reform, but not saying, as usual, what it is that the Liberal Party would do. There is a complete absence of policy being put forward by the Liberal Party, and nowhere is that more evident than in relation to the tax reforms. We heard it just now from Senator Abetz. Nothing coming forward at all in relation to tax reform.
Senator Cormann, when...
If I can just jump in there for a minute and respond.
See some policy?
Well, I think that Tony Abbott has put forward a very clear plan for direct action on climate change, in contrast to the Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd. What we've seen from the Prime Minister in the first two years of his government was a lot of rhetoric, a lot of political name-calling, but he avoided the debate on his emissions trading scheme at every step of the way. He was not prepared to demonstrate and to explain to the Australian people on how his scheme would actually help reduce emissions. What we've got with the Prime Minister's proposal is a great big new tax which will push up the price of everything, cost jobs, put pressure on our economy without helping to reduce emissions. In contrast, what Tony Abbott has done, he's put forward a direct plan, a plan for direct action, which actually will deliver tangible results. That the Prime Minister is now running away from this debate yet again with an election a couple of months away just says a lot about the phony attitudes, and that this government really is all talk and no action. The Prime Minister, if he really believed in what he put forward, should be prepared to engage in a proper debate. But instead, what is happening, he's running away because he knows that ultimately it would not withstand the scrutiny of the Australian people.
I want to turn to the debate about the resources super profits tax. Now, mining magnate Clive Palmer says the resources boom will come to an end. If we can hear a little bit of what he's had to say.
Our next project will be in Papua New Guinea, where there's half the taxation regime.
These are the resources of the Australian people. They're not Mr Palmer's.
Senator Cormann, to you first. WA is at the centre of the resources boom. What at the moment are your thoughts on the resources super profits tax? Isn't it a fair argument that Australians deserve their fair share of the resources boom?
Well, the one thing Kevin Rudd knows how to do is how to slap on another tax. What we've seen, and Labor has got
Senator,
form on this, of
don't
course.
Australians deserve a fair share from any resources boom?
You know, we ought to have a tax system in place that is fair, that is simple, and that is efficient. And clearly, there's got to be a right balance. But what we've seen from this government, in their first budget, they increased taxes by about $20 billion. And now, out of the Henry Review, we were promised root and branch reform. We were promised a strategic reform of our tax system. Instead, all we've got is a bad old-fashioned Labor Party tax grab, a $29 billion tax grab on Australian business, including, of course, a $9 billion tax grab on our resources sector. Instead of embracing the opportunities that come from economic growth, instead of embracing the opportunities that come from the resources sector, which has helped us move out of the global economic downturn so quickly, what Kevin Rudd is about to do is to choke that recovery before it even properly gets underway. This is not about...
If I can go to Mark Dreyfus. Mark Dreyfus, many analysts wonder why we needed the Henry tax review when so few of the recommendations have been adopted and some have been ruled out, many have been ruled out altogether. And now you've got a battle on your hands with the resources sector, and it is impacting on the share market, as we heard from ComSec earlier.
The resource super profits tax is a fair tax that is going to deliver an appropriate return to Australians from our national resources, which belong to all Australians. We can't be governing by reference to the day-to-day fluctuations of the share market, and in any event it's worth pointing to the fact that there have been very large swings in the values of these shares over the last year. BHP's been in a range of $33 to $41. Rio's been in an even larger range of $46 to $81, and we don't set policy by looking at the day-to-day fluctuations of the share market. What we have in this resource super profits tax is a fair tax, and as you pointed out, questioning Senator Abetz before, Selina, it's a tax which is very similar to the tax that we've had in the petroleum industry for over 20 years. And I seem to recall the very same Liberal Party howling in opposition, howling hysterically in opposition to that petroleum resources tax. And of course, it hasn't caused damage to that industry. We've got very large investments in offshore petroleum exploration as we speak, providing very large employment to Australians. This is a fair tax, and it's a very solid reform.
Senator Cormann,
that is, of course, a very disingenuous argument that Mark Dreyfus has just put forward there, because the royalty arrangements for our resources sector onshore are very different from the taxation arrangement that apply to our offshore petroleum gas projects, and I'm sure that he would know that. The reality here is that this is just a lazy tax grab. Instead of going for the more difficult and more challenging long-term root and branch reform of the tax system that the Prime Minister promised, he went for the lazy tax grab, which is, of course, entirely consistent with Labor's instincts in government.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm afraid we have run out of time and we do have to leave it there. Senator Cormann in Perth, Mark Dreyfus in Melbourne, many thanks for your time.
Thank you, Selina.
Thank you, Selina.
And that's all for this edition of Lunchtime Agenda. Join Kieran Gilbert at 4:15 for